How you are back to the channel. You know what I'm saying? You can check out the last video. Make sure you uncheck them out. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you check out the shorts too. Make sure you subscribe and like. You enjoy your stay and you enjoy my perspective and my insight on more. And today we got a video from the Cosmic Wonder. Marvel just completely changed their plans and they admitted their failures.
Journal just released a very
See what they talking
important
about, y'all.
article that I think every Marvel fan needs to hear what they said, because they talk about how
See
Marvel
what they talking
Studios
about, man.
has
We just heard
just
that.
reevaluated
Bro might come back
everything
as
that they
Iron
have
Man.
done basically over the past 5 years and have decided to completely switch up everything that they are doing. This article talks about
Hey, I got a question, y'all. I'm pretty sure y'all all watched Iron Man. Y'all remember when Terrence Howard was Rhodey? I was looking at one of his interviews and stuff about how he got, because I was wondering like what happened to him, like why didn't he play Rhodey? You know what I'm saying, no more. And I was watching, the reasons why and stuff. I honestly think, and I love bro as an actor. Bro can act. You know what I'm saying. He did his thing, but I do think Terrence Howard was the better Rhodey, bro. He was the better Rhodey, bro. Just imagine how great of a character the War Machine would actually be if it was Rhodey, if it was Terrence Howard, bro. I really think Terrence Howard should have still been playing this role, but bro said some stuff that got him in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Got him
how
blacklisted,
Kevin
whatever the
Feige, the
case.
president of Marvel Studios, was basically pressured by Disney to create streaming content. They talk about how he was spread way too thin and many people
Wait,
create streaming
create
content.
streaming
The
content.
president of Marvel Studios was basically pressured by Disney to create streaming content. They talk about how he was
He was
spread
pressured by them
way
to
too
make.
thin and many people
So okay, so was Kevin Feige not planning on making a lot of these, like a lot of shows and stuff like that, before Disney kind of forced his hand? Was he planning on doing? Now it makes me wonder, like, what was his plans before Disney got involved,
working
though?
on shows and movies had to run
Or
in the
I should say,
hallways
got
to
too
try and
involved.
find him to just get a second of his time so he could approve or disapprove or give his input on certain projects. They talk about how the people at Marvel Studios talked about Marvel and superhero fatigue. They talk about why they did everything they have done recently, including bringing Robert Downey Jr. back as Doctor Doom and making Avengers King Dynasty Avengers Doomsday. But most importantly, they talk about their plans moving forward. They acknowledge the issues of the past and are moving forward in a great way. And I think everybody needs to hear what is being said in this article. So let's go ahead and break it all down. The article itself is titled, "Disney Wanted More from Marvel, Now It Wants Less." The superhero studio is cutting back TV production and fixing its film slate after fans lost the plot. Now, right away, the article
I don't think fans lost the plot, bro. I really just think they took too long to release a lot of the titles they said they was gonna release and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, how you gonna say you bringing out Blade and then you cancel it like 4 or 5 times, bro? That was the problem. Their problem was the fact that they kept canceling so many things, bro. And then the whole Jonathan Majors things happened, and they had to postpone what they was doing with that. I really think it's just them cutting out a lot of the titles they were going to do, bro. Most of the things they were going to make, I feel like they should have just dropped it. Being honest, whether it's a hit or miss, they should have just dropped it. Blade is one of them. I'm always keep bringing up Blade, bro, because they keep doing my boy Blade so dirty. And Ghost Rider too, bro. They should have been brought him back. It's a lot of characters they kept off screen for a long time, bro. And I'm wondering, was that Disney's call or was that Kevin Feige's call?
basically addresses and
It's a long
confirms what
video. I
all
ain't
of
gonna
us
pause too
fans
much.
thought all along. They state the head of
It's a
Marvel
lot
Studios,
of
speaking of Kevin Feige,
news.
told colleagues recently that watching all the comic book giants' new TV shows and films had started to feel more like homework than entertainment.
Damn.
The problem,
Is that a
Kevin
diss?
Feige acknowledged, is that in an effort to satisfy parent company Disney's hunger for
See?
content on its new streaming service, the studio behind The Avengers churned out too many movies and shows with interconnected stories. The delusion
Bro, y'all can, bro. Is it really that hard though? You know what I'm saying? Because me as a viewer, you know what I'm saying? I could say, oh, it's easy for them to do this and that, but I'm not actually there on set writing the stories, and you know what I'm saying? So I know it's a lot that goes into this, bro. But bro, they could have, bro. They could have followed the comics. They could have followed the video games they put out for certain characters to put out, story modes if they not story modes, but movies and stuff or TV shows. They have a lot of movies with like loose ends, like for one, Morbius. They could have turned that into a TV show after the first movie, or they could have dropped another movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, they have so many characters that a lot of people want to see that they only seen a little bit of, and they never touched back on them again, that they could put out now. You know what I'm saying? Or, in the past when they were trying to satisfy Disney. But like I said, I do know it's probably hard to write all these stories, bro, especially super fast to make it good enough for the viewers to actually stay connected to Marvel. I'm pretty sure they were like, bro, we don't want to drop all these damn titles and all this, and people end up hating the character because we rushed it. So I get that too, you know what I'm saying? I gotta play both sides, you know what I'm saying? I gotta let y'all understand both sides, at least from my perspective, bro. So I don't know if I really think this might be Disney's fault.
Of material from the Marvel Cinematic Universe or MCU on Disney Plus overwhelmed and eventually alienated viewers. It also stretched Feige and his team's resources thin, diluting the quality of their output.
What I really appreciated,
Marvel's box office sales, streaming popularity, and formerly untouchable position in pop culture
they need some more writers.
So right away, Kevin Feige, the president of Marvel Studios, admits that watching everything kind of felt a little bit more like homework than entertainment, and confirmed what we all thought. Disney was pressuring Marvel Studios to simply just produce a bunch of content for Disney Plus, and naturally everything suffered for it. But here's the good news. They acknowledge this, and they are now getting back on track to try to get back to old school Marvel. They state now.
So what this mean? It's Kevin Feige saying like, bro, I'm finna, you know what I'm saying? I'm finna do what I want to do because I know what I do is success. But Disney gotta let Kevin Feige and the Marvel, they gotta let them do their thing, bro. They know what they're doing with their heroes.
Feige is leading an internal overhaul aimed at getting the studio back on track. Marvel is making fewer TV shows with standalone stories that don't require prior knowledge of the MCU. Feige is focused on fixing the studio's movie slate following recent flops like February's Captain America Brave New World. So right away, they're making less TV shows, and it sounds like Captain America Brave New World. So right away.
That was a flop? Bro, Captain America, bro, that was a good movie. Was that really a flop? Damn, bro.
They're making less TV shows, and it sounds like now, one, the TV shows aren't going to require any prior knowledge in the MCU, meaning you won't really have to watch anything beforehand. So this is a big switch up. If you didn't watch Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Age of Ultron, and other things prior to watching WandaVision, you probably wouldn't have too much of an idea of what's going on.
This is going to be my last part for a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Bro, I think they should do more TV shows, and they can do animated TV shows if that's easier. Just make sure that the people who play these characters in the real show, you know what I'm saying? Make sure that the voice actors, you know what I'm saying? Like, if y'all want to do that, y'all can do that too. I honestly think people wouldn't mind it being like a live action series, and sometimes y'all release animated series of these characters. And then when they get into the movies, y'all live action the character. Like, I feel like people wouldn't mind it. What y'all think? You know what I'm saying? I think that's a pretty good idea.
The same thing went for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier or Loki. If you didn't watch things before, it would be really hard to really get into the shows. So Marvel is no longer going to make shows like that. They're going to make shows that you can watch one off. And this most likely means that they won't have too many tie-ins to big events that are happening in the MCU overall. I'm sure some of them will, but it sounds like their goal is to basically make the MCU the way it was before, with all of the movies being the things that really interconnect with one another, and then the shows can be fun one-off adventures. And yes, they will take place in the MCU, so of course they'll be connected in that sense, but it sounds like they're going to make it to where they're not absolutely necessary for the overall story in the films. Now, as far as why Marvel suffered during this time where they were producing a lot of Disney Plus content, they talk about this in great detail in the article, and it all comes down to Kevin Feige. The article has a section titled Papa Feige. In this section, they talk about how great Kevin Feige has been at starting the MCU. Basically, building up to Avengers Endgame, and with Avengers Endgame, the studio really couldn't be touched. With, of course, its crowning achievement being in 2019 with Avengers Endgame, with it grossing $2.8 billion, a record at the time. But here's where the problem
this is why they paying their actors so much money, bro. They making billions of. I'm not even lying, bro. Like, I'm not even mad that they paying RDJ as much money as they paying them, bro. Let's be real. Iron Man was a success. Apart from Iron Man was apart from Spider-Man. Iron Man was a hit, bro. Like a standalone hit. Because everybody know the standalones for Spider-Man movies always hit. But it was a little hard for them to make, other movies where the character alone just really like made an impact on the universe. You know what I'm saying? Iron Man was one of them characters, bro. One of the first few characters to make a huge impact like Spider-Man, in my perspective. I could be wrong. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, I'm still learning a lot about Marvel. Like, I know a lot, but it's still a lot to learn. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still watching TV shows and catching up on things I haven't seen yet. But as far as I know, bro, Iron Man is that guy. Apart from
the decline came in after that. They state during Marvel's heyday in the 2010s, Feige was heavily involved in the film development. He deployed lower-ranking executives to supervise shooting, then got his hands dirty again in the editing room, often making significant changes and ordering new scenes. And the movies were overseen by a small team of creative executives who came to be known as the Parliament. Most had been with the company since its founding or joined as assistants and were promoted, giving Marvel a family-like culture. And they state Feige was the studio's beloved and charismatic dad, a creative genius from whom everyone sought attention and approval.
Dope, bro.
So it was working great before Endgame, but this is where the problem came. They say soon after Endgame, Marvel Studios started to work on what was next for the MCU. However, Disney was working on what would be best for Disney Plus to compete with Netflix, stating that Disney needed loads of new series for it, and they were counting on Marvel to provide many of them. The strategy became just expansion, said a person who worked at Marvel at the time. Kevin Feige told colleagues that he agreed to the plan because of a zealousness to tell more stories and a desire to be an excellent corporate citizen.
Basically saying Kevin Feige decided to agree because he was like, I do want to tell more stories. You know what I'm saying? So I'll be down. But he probably just didn't realize the scope of how much pressure it was going to be on the writers and all that stuff and the actors to really get this all to happen as fast as Disney wanted it to happen. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't forget these actors got other roles and other things going. They got family. You know what I'm saying? They got things going on in their life too. So when they pressuring Marvel, they really pressuring all the actors that's involved. You know what I'm saying? Which is it's kind of hard for them to just. Like I believe I seen one of the Marvel actors. He was filming him or she was filming something for another movie or TV show, and then they went straight to the Avenger Doomsday set to start filming there too. And I'm like, bro, I know they work. I believe it was Tom Holland who did it. I believe so. I could be wrong, but I know it was some of them actors who did. I'm like, bro, they working. You know what I'm saying? Like, they about to be tired. You know what I'm saying? Like, they gonna need a long vacation after these movies, bro, because they finna be filming from day in to night out, you know what I'm saying? And I feel bad for them, but the fact that they have this family oriented, you know what I'm saying? I know that makes it easier for them to be on set, you know what I'm saying? Which is why I want to be a part of Marvel, bro. You don't get to, it's like joining a basketball team, you know what I'm saying? Like the coach, the leader, you know what I'm saying? The head honcho, they could really make an impact on how people feel getting up and going there to play or go to work, every single day, you know what I'm saying? But Disney is making that whole process a little bit harder. You know what I'm saying?
It turned out to be a mistake. Bro. The Wall Street Journal states that Marvel's transition from producing a few hours of movie content annually to several dozen hours of streaming shows and films eventually broke down the studio's processes. A pair of executives oversaw each show, while Feige remained the final decision maker on every significant creative issue, even though there were exponentially more decisions to make each day. And here was the big problem. They state people who worked at Marvel in the early 2020s said It was challenging to secure enough time with Feige to get his feedback. As a result, they sometimes spent weeks on work that proved irrelevant once he weighed in, then found themselves with little time to implement his changes before a deadline. Desperate staffers resorted to chasing Feige in the halls to get answers. So basically what they are explaining here is that before, Kevin Feige used to look over everything. And that's because they used to only produce a few movies a year. And they actually show a graph here that shows what they produced prior to Disney Plus and then what they started to produce.
I see. Okay, so before they used to drop a lot more movies, and now they're dropping more TV shows on top of the movies. Yeah, so back then they were more consistent. Yeah, bro. Disney's messing them up, bro.
After, and
Disney's
as you
messing
can see
Marvel up,
here,
bro.
it is so much more. So while Kevin Feige used to be able to look over everything, it quickly turned into he was basically looking at some things here and there, giving his input every now and then when the
So I see Kevin Feige, he like making movies more than TV shows. You know what I'm saying? That's his thing. He like making the movies, you know. And back then we were getting a lot more movies, a lot more consistently with characters and stuff like that. And now we're getting like TV shows and some movies, and that's kind of slowing down like it seemed like we're getting a lot more, but it's like the quality over quantity type thing going. That's what's happening right now. Disney's kind of
final product came, he demanded changes to make things better, but since there wasn't a lot of time, they really couldn't make all of the changes, and that definitely explains why the CGI for some things has been pretty sketchy. The team was asked to make changes with just not enough time to do it well. So the result was a lot of projects coming from Marvel Studios, all of which weren't the same quality that fans were used to, which brings us to the next section titled Marvel Fatigue. They state the internal dysfunction began to show in Marvel's output. Viewers complained that there was too much Marvel content to keep up with, and a growing proportionate of it felt subpar, with shows failing to attract new viewers or even old viewers, with shows like Secret Invasion and Miss Marvel. And they state that in the theaters, Marvel's biggest hits were the nostalgia stories like Spider-Man No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine. They then stated that they had a lot riding on Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and then it flopped. And then employees at Marvel started to talk regularly about Marvel fatigue. They worried that they had created a no new fans club in which people unfamiliar with the state of the MCU couldn't watch a new release.
Hey, no, that ain't happened. Y'all created a new pure fan. You know what I'm saying? I've always been a fan, but now I'm like a real fan. Now I'm really like into it. You know what I'm saying? Like it gave me a different perspective on a lot of stuff. And I ain't gonna lie, it's because where I was at in my life, and Marvel, watching some of the Marvel movies really helped me get through it, helped me laugh and see a couple things different, because I heard a couple lines that dropped and I was like, I can use that for real life. You know what I mean? So y'all got a real fan in me. You know what I'm saying? So don't say y'all ain't got no new fans club. Y'all definitely got some new fans clubs. You know what I'm saying? Y'all definitely do. It's just growing a little bit slower than it did before.
Because they'd have no idea what was going on. Meanwhile, Wall Street's obsession with streaming growth gave way to a focus on profitability, and Bob Iger and
don't forget about my new
Kevin Feige began scrutinizing Marvel's costs and creative choices more closely. This led to them deciding that Blade's script was not good enough, and they scrapped the film, for now at least. But this is where things kind of started to change. Quantumania bombed, and then Kevin Feige decided to become more involved, hoping that the Marvels wouldn't bomb. But it became Marvel's biggest bomb ever. And this is where all of the big
why wasn't he as involved for a little bit of time? Was it because Disney stepped in and he was kind of irritated, like, bro, they doing too much, bro? Like, I can't really do what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? Was it something like that, bro? Like, how come you stepped away in a sense? Like, or maybe he was just taking a break. You know what I'm saying? It could be that, because, you know, shit could get tired. You know what I'm saying? So maybe he was just taking a break and he was like, I'm gonna take this break. I trust that things would be cool. But then, you know, Disney started doing a little too, you know, and he was like, I gotta come back. You know what I'm saying? Was it that, or What was it? You
changes
know what I'm
come
saying?
in.
Let us know.
Marvel and Feige's Parliament team has
think the
gone
Russo
to a
brothers coming
retreat
in really
every
helps him,
fall
dog.
in Palm Springs. They
Like,
would
makes
go and they would
things
plan
a
out
lot
the
easier
future
for
of
him
the
to handle.
MCU. And in 2023, it was basically the worst time that they've ever gone, with Marvel not being in such good shape. The TV shows weren't working, the movies weren't working, and the studio had just laid off employees for the first time in its history. From here, they talked about
And
whether or not they
for
could
the first
salvage
time
their
they laid
plans
off
for Kang Dynasty,
people,
with
bro.
Quantumania being such a bomb, and talked about a new TV strategy
like
in
Kang
which
Dynasty
shows would
was
have
it, bro.
plots divorced from the MCU, making
I
them
feel like they should have put King Dynasty and then showed Doctor Doom. You know, and then Avengers Doomsday could have showed up the movie right after, bro. They could have kept Avengers the King Dynasty and then ended that movie where Doctor Doom coming in. They could have kept it, but they didn't because the whole
easier for new
situation.
fans to
They
understand.
probably was
And this
planning on
led to a
doing that, to
bunch
be
of
honest.
changes that Marvel Studios then made and are continuing to make now. They decided to cut back significantly on TV production. And Disney CEO Bob Iger even said,
If it'll help
quantity in our case
with the quality,
diluted
it'd be
quality. And Marvel has
And
suffered greatly
I
from
agree
that.
with it.
And now they're only going to release 1 or 2 live action streaming series annually, starting in 2026, with the goal of the new shows they introduce to have multiple seasons and not cross over onto the big screen. And the primary reason that they are doing this is so Feige can focus on the movies. And they're even going to have a senior executive overseeing television.
But bro, if you gonna, I'm thinking you're gonna use these TV shows to kind of give us slight intros or some story to some of the characters you're gonna put in to like some of the movies that's coming up. I would think that would be a little bit better and a little bit easier for you, especially if you putting in new characters into a movie because they popping up to team up or something. They already had their introduction through a TV show or something. You know what I mean? Or maybe that's what he planning on doing though with some of these characters. But he just said they ain't gonna plug into the movies. Maybe that's just because the next saga, it ain't gonna be no point to plug in the TV shows or the movies. So maybe that's what he means.
Which, as far
Maybe it's
as
just
we're
for that
concerned, I believe that is Brad Winderbaum, head of Marvel TV.
But I
Marvel's
like
top
this idea
priority
so far.
is ensuring that the next 2 Avengers extend the track record
lot
of
of
the
these shows only got, like, 2
franchise.
seasons,
So Marvel
1 or 2
decided to brainstorm on how they could make Avengers Kang Dynasty better, and it just so happened
I ain't
that
watched
at that
it yet, don't spoil
time,
it.
Kevin Feige had been talking to Robert Downey Jr. for more than a year about returning to the MCU to specifically play Doctor Doom. They just didn't know when or where he could return and appear in the MCU. But as they started to think about what to do for Kang Dynasty, they ultimately decided that Robert Downey Jr. was the solution to their so-called Avengers problem. So they changed Avengers Kang Dynasty to Avengers Doomsday and announced that Robert Downey Jr. would be returning to play Doom. And they don't mention this, but I'm sure the fact that Jonathan Majors got into all of the trouble that he did made it pretty easy to move away from Kang, on top of already beginning to think about moving away from Kang. Then on top of that, they hired the Russo brothers to come back for the next 2 Avengers films as well, stating that Kevin Feige likes to go back to people he trusts, particularly in moments of urgency, which I would definitely say that Marvel was in. So Marvel Studios has a completely new plan moving forward, and the article ends actually by stating, in many ways, Marvel has now reverted to its strategy from before the streaming boom, as if the past 5 years had been a bad dream. As he did when Marvel Studios started, Feige has an expansive vision for his company's big screen future. The upcoming Avengers movies are expected to introduce the X-Men, one of Marvel's most popular superhero teams, to the MCU. Feige has told colleagues
isn't the X-Men like one of the first things Kevin Feige like worked on when he joined Marvel or something like that? I could be wrong, but I believe he was like he was heavy in that when it first like started. Like that was, I believe that was one of the first things he started on.
10-year plan for the characters. So, huge news for us Marvel fans. Marvel Studios is basically going back to how they did it in the Infinity Saga. And the phrase, "In Feige we trust," does come to mind because when Feige can directly oversee projects and give time to those projects, that's when they're good. And now Marvel Studios has a head of television to where Feige doesn't really have to be involved, which means now, and this is their plan, he can completely focus on movies. And this is going to make a really big difference for both TV and movies,
So,
because now Brad
expect
Winderbaum can
Avengers
make all
Doomsday
the
and Secret
decisions
Wars
for
of
TV
Spider-Man
shows,
to
and
be
he can make
fire,
them
nigga.
pretty much right away when they need to be made. This will
My
lead
hopes
to
is
things
up.
not being done at the last minute, and the same thing goes for movies. Kevin Feige can be involved the entire time. So instead of the creative team working on something for weeks and then Kevin Feige coming in and saying, nope, that doesn't work,
Avengers
start over
Reborn.
or do something else, that's not the case anymore. He can be with them when they
big.
begin and either say, yes,
Are all
this is
these
good,
gonna
or
come
no,
out
it's not,
still?
let's go a different direction. This
that
is
was
going
phase
to
one.
really just improve the quality of all of the projects coming from Marvel Studios a ton. So their new strategy,
I really hope Shang-Chi
combined
2
with
come out
the
soon, man.
X-Men now coming to our new universe after Secret Wars, and the Fantastic Four and whoever else they get
Hey,
to appear.
I ain't gonna lie, bro. I saw a little leak, bro, on Instagram, but I couldn't help it. But it was a Thunderbolts post-credit end scene, bro. I saw the Fantastic Four ship come in, bro. I just spoiled it for a lot of y'all.